Oi.
The word diabolical has become a mainstay in our daily vocabulary, and we have one person to thank for that, Billy Butcher. Even without superpowers, he was the one guy that Supes would run away from because he's bat-crap crazy and perhaps the greatest soup hunter of all time. But now that he's a Supe himself, Billy is a much bigger threat because now he's leveled the playing field. He doesn't need dynamite sticks and halothane and elaborate plans anymore. He can improvise, and there's nothing scarier in this universe than a butcher without a plan. But what exactly are his powers? And are they even his own? We'll answer all those questions and more in this video, so without further ado, let's get right to it. He has all the regular Supe abilities: super strength, durability, and hearing. When a person consumes compound V, whether it's shortly after birth or through the temporary formula called V24, they receive a basic set of abilities that are universal to all Supes. Compound V is a substance that enhances all human senses to an extreme level. It also improves their physiology beyond what's capable for the human body to withstand, which is why Supes are called Supes in the first place. Even if you have a weirdly specific ability, and we'll get to butchers in a few moments, the fact that you are stronger, faster, have better hearing, and can see farther than any human being is a baseline for all Supes. And while that baseline may vary from person to person, in Butcher's case it is quite high. Butcher gained all the requisite Supe abilities when he first injected himself with V24. His super strength allowed him to do things he could only have imagined. When he fought Gunpowder, Soldier Boy's former payback teammate, he was able to break Gunpowder's pistol with his bare hands. He also beat him to a bloody pulp with those hands before finishing him off with his special ability. In fact, Butcher is probably one of the most physically strongest Supes in the franchise now because his punches affected Homelander more than Queen Maeve's did, and Maeve was already one of the strongest Supes, period. His super strength also allowed him to break Soldier Boy's unreasonably heavy and durable shield into dozens of pieces. After he softened it up, of course. And Butcher becomes so durable after taking V24 that it doesn't matter what caliber of bullets are being fired at him. Whether it's a 50 caliber bullet coming off of Gunpowder's Desert Eagles or armor-piercing shot from Russian assault rifles, Butcher can withstand it all. That was why he got addicted to V24 in the first place, because usually it'd take months of sting operations and equipment purchases to kill one of them. Killing Gunpowder in a New York minute off of V24 convinced Butcher he needed to join the Supes to beat them, and that's exactly what he does in Season 4. Going toe-to-toe with a Homelander would be a death sentence for most Supes because he can simply knock their jaws off their faces. Homelander putting his entire arm through Black Noir One's abdomen was as tragic as it was scary because it proved that lower-level Supes, even if they're in the 7, really don't stand a chance against him. But when Butcher fought Homelander, he tanked his punches like he was a regular human, and the only damage he got was a small cut on his cheek. So even by Supe standards, Butcher's a cut above the rest, and his only baseline weakness is one that all Supes share, which is super hearing. The ears of a Supe are attuned to such a high level that they can hear frequencies most people cannot. Vought found a way to weaponize this against them by coming up with sonic devices that specifically target a Supe's hearing. We saw these weapons being used almost constantly in Gen V Season 2, thanks to Marie Moreau and her rebellious friends. There's really nothing in the franchise that suggests Butcher is above being affected by those weapons, and maybe that's a major motivator behind Homelander bringing Oh Father back into the public eye. Oh Father's primary ability is to produce sonic waves like Supersonic did, and if he attunes his voice to a specific pitch, he can prove to be a lethal adversary both to humans and Inhumans. Now that Homelander knows the limits to which Butcher is willing to go just to kill him, he'll risk hearing loss before he takes another chance on the guy. And that's not just because he has the physical abilities of a Supe now. He used to have laser eyes on V24. Stay with us until the end of the video because we promise there's a reason we're giving you all this background lore. It's relevant, and it will show up in a way that you guys might not expect. Having said that, let's get back to our breakdown of Butcher's complete set of Supe abilities. Apart from enhanced physiology, every Supe in this universe manifests a power that is specific to them. It can be something as awesome as super speed or flight, Some Supes manifest multiple powers, like Annie, who can manipulate electricity and use that same manipulation to fly as well. Others aren't as fortunate because their powers are weirdly specific. Allie from Gen V Season 2 can manipulate her hair, but not the hair that's on her head. The Godolkin student called Black Hole has a black hole singularity within his body. It's just located in the most unfortunate orifice. It feels like a Supe's special ability is something that's not predetermined, because if that were true, Vought creating a Supe with a black hole in their anus would have to be an intentional joke. No, it's more likely that special abilities are developed based on the subject's personality and desires in most cases, with the exceptions being Odessa kids like Homelander and Marie. We know Vought was trying to make a Supe with the ability to manipulate blood for a long time, and we know that they intentionally made Homelander the strongest Supe alive by giving him insane physical stats, laser eyes, X-ray vision, the whole shebang. But he's not the only person in this franchise that can use laser eyes. One of the first Supes to possess this same power that was Homelander is a child Butcher used to escape Vought agents in Season 1. There's even a God U student who has laser eyes, only hers shoot pink beams instead of the classic red. Speedsters are a dime a dozen in this universe, so what we're trying to say here is that special abilities most likely depend on a combination of physiology, genealogy, and psychology. And considering the entire reason Butcher became a Supe hunter in the first place was his hatred for Homelander, it's no surprise that the power he manifested was laser eyes. Butcher's laser eyes weren't as powerful as Homie's. Homelander's laser eyes can effortlessly chop up a transoceanic flight into pieces like it was made of meat, and he was holding a cleaver. Homie doesn't even use his laser eyes too much, because his goes straight through people's bodies, and only Supes have the physiology to withstand those attacks for an extremely limited amount of time. To be fair to him, we've only seen him laser 3 Supes intentionally so far: Marie, Victoria Newman, and Stormfront, and the first 2 were connected to the Odessa project. When Homelander lasered Stormfront, he visibly charred her flesh to the point it blackened like it was being roasted on a spit. So while Supes won't get insta-killed by his lasers, they also won't be surviving it the way Marie and Vicky did. Butcher's eyes are a little different in that they can still cut through most things like reinforced steel, human and genetic Supes' flesh, and houses made out of wood. In fact, his golden eyes, which are most likely a reference to the James Bond film GoldenEye because they're both spies, are the reason that Soldier Boy's exceptionally durable metal shield gets shattered in the first place. Butcher superheats the shield to the point where it becomes brittle, and then he punches it with his super strength to break it apart. So even though they're a diminished version of Homie's signature ability, they're still pretty strong. But his usage of them isn't as effortless as Homelander's. In fact, when Butcher squares off against Homelander during the Hero-gasm episode, he is visibly straining himself just to match the intensity of Homelander's laser beams. Homie is just fine shooting those lethal red arrays. He doesn't need to put any effort into it. But Butcher is literally screaming just to try to keep up, and in the end he loses out to Homelander because he's just not on the same level. So while the Temp V made him just like the man he hates, Butcher was a lesser version of Homie, and he realized that during the Hero-gasm fight. It took him, Soldier Boy, and a V'd up Huey just to hold him down, and even then, Homelander was able to escape. So while his abuse of V-24 should have worked in theory, in practice it was a failure. And what's worse is it endangered his life greatly, because Homelander and everyone else that takes the regular version of Compound V do not suffer from adverse side effects when they're injected with it. V-24 was still in the testing stage when Butcher took it, and as a result, he exposed himself to the worst side effect of all: cancer. He developed brain cancer that was so bad, he started leaking brain goo from his ears. When he sees Homelander at the beginning of Season 4 while trying to get Ryan away from him, Homie notices Butcher's cancer and notes that it's so aggressive he only has about 6 months to live. Keep that number in mind because it's going to become important really soon. In an effort to bypass the cancer, Butcher injects himself with the genuine article because he thinks Compound V could counteract the cancer cells. He should have watched the Amazon spin-off show named after his signature line, because the boys Diabolical showed us that's not how V works in cancer patients. And this is where we talk about his new powers. Sentient brain cancer and Butcher's new powers. In The Boys Diabolical Episode 7, which was written by Andy Samberg, by the way, just in case you needed a fun fact to keep things interesting, we meet a couple, one half of which is suffering from pancreatic cancer. That half is Sun Hee, the beloved wife of John Hee, and to save her life, John does what most people would never even dream of doing. He steals Compound V from Vought. He gives Sun the V because he thinks it's a miracle drug that will take her cancer away. But instead of going into Sun's body alone, the V also bonds with her cancer cells and turns it into a sentient entity. That's exactly what happens to Butcher when he takes the real Compound V to counteract the brain tumor he got from abusing V24. All those scenes from Season 4 where we saw tendrils moving underneath his flesh, those tendrils weren't an unconscious defense mechanism that Butcher gained through V. They belong to the cancer within him, which is now a thing of its own. Because the tumor is in his brain, the cancer ends up putting Butcher in a bit of an angel and devil on his shoulders kind of situation. The part of him that's still good and wants to save the world the right way by honoring his wife's memory and protecting her legacy, Ryan, is represented by Becca. The part of him that just wants to embrace his hatred for Homelander and burn everything to the ground in pursuit of vengeance and genocide is represented by Joe Kessler. Season 4 sees Butcher resisting Kessler's influence as much as he can, because while he wants to go full berserk mode on his enemies, he knows Becca wouldn't like it, and Ryan would think even lesser of him. But in doing so, he's also resisting his sentient cancer, which decides to punish him by making him sicker by the day. You'll notice that for most of Season 4, whenever Butcher decides to take the morally just path, his appearance becomes worse. He looks sickly pale, his eyes are sunken and bloodshot, and he's throwing his guts up whenever he's on a mission. That coincides with every time he tries to do the right thing. But when he gives in to Kessler's way of thinking, suddenly Butcher's fine and back to his diabolical ways. He cuts off Dr. Samir's leg like it's no big deal just to keep him prisoner, and though he doesn't remember it, he ripped Ezekiel's body apart to ensure his own survival. Well, that's a bit misleading because technically, Butcher didn't kill Ezekiel. What killed Ezekiel was his V-amped brain tumor, which decided to protect itself by protecting its host. At that point, Butcher didn't know what kind of transformation his body had really gone through after taking the V, because all he could tell was that it didn't kill his cancer, and it took his laser eyes away. But when he realizes that both Becca and Kessler are figments of his imagination, and that the latter had never been real, that's the moment Butcher gains complete clarity about his true position in life. He wasn't a lone gunslinger anymore. He now had an extremely powerful entity residing within him that could rip Supes apart like paper dolls. After hearing Kessler tell him the truth about Ezekiel and the fact that he was the one thinking about committing genocide on the Supe population, not Joe, that's when Butcher's countenance starts cleaning up, and this is the moment where his character trajectory for the rest of the series gets locked in. When he shows up at that warehouse where the boys are working out a deal with Newman, he looks considerably healthier. His pale skin reverts to his regular appearance, and all signs of sickness are gone. This signifies that he has accepted the cancer as being a part of him, and in exchange it has given him an accelerated healing factor. The cancer's main ability is to rip apart Butcher's own flesh so he can unleash its tendrils upon his enemies, and when he retracts them back into himself, his skin rapidly heals to the point it looks like nothing happened to him. This is quite similar to Sun Hee's cancer as well, with the only difference being that her sentient tumor glowed where Butcher's does not. Also, in case you're wondering whether Butcher's cancer is alive or not, go back and watch that sequence where he kills Victoria Newman. Right before he finishes the job, the boys try to stop him and he aims multiple tendrils at each of them. Each of those tendrils sport fanged mouths that snarl at the boys as a warning. Stay back or he'll do the same to you. This is proof that Butcher is working in tandem with his sickness, and his sickness has sickening strength. Vicky was one of the strongest Supes in the series. Even Homelander's eye lasers left her body unscathed. It took Butcher a grand total of 3 cancer tendrils to tear her in half, and he did so quite intelligently. He covered Vicky's eyes first because he knew that's how she activates her power. He then used her head, torso, and lower body as the vantage points for the murder, while knocking Zoe out with another tendril. The situational awareness and sheer strength of this sentient tumor is horrifying, and we see it in the final season's trailer as well. When Butcher meets Soldier Boy in that trailer, he throws his car on him with the tendrils. We also see him one-shotting a poor human Vought Spec Ops guy through the chest, and using as many as 6 tendrils to restrain and presumably kill Cindy, another ridiculously strong Supe. Butcher and his cancer being the biggest threat to Homelander's life is something we didn't expect to be saying in any video, because in the comics, Butcher's V injection just gives him baseline Supe powers. And considering the fact that his healing factor is based on him accepting playing host to his parasitic tumor, it feels like as long as he lets it live, he'll live as well. But is that really true? And are Butcher's laser eyes gone forever? Can Butcher be killed? The only way to take him down. Going back to that diabolical episode, while Sun-Hee did get better through her parasitic tumor, it didn't last for long. By the end of the episode, the cancer had taken on a complete life of its own, and it crawled out of her body to go its own way. It entered a jungle where it started consuming all the life around it, including the Vought agents that were deployed to deal with it. Ultimately, Sun-Hee had to go deal with her mess herself, because turns out the V gave her powers too. It gave her the ability to shoot laser beams from her wrists, and this power didn't manifest fully until the cancer left her body. And that episode's ending implied that Sun-Hee and the cancer died fighting each other. So because Butcher's sentient tumor is the same kind of entity, there's a real possibility that it will ditch his body at some point during Season 5. This is where the 6 months timeline comes back into play, because The Boys Season 5 is set 6 months after Gen V Season 2, which itself took place shortly after The Boys Season 4. If our math is right, Butcher's original timeline for staying alive has already elapsed, and what's keeping him going now is his parasitic tumor. Or at least, that's the direction the show will end up taking, considering he should be dead by now. So if, or rather when, Butcher's cancer crawls out of him like Sun-Hee's did, that's when he'll finally become killable. And if we're right about his laser eyes being his innate ability, maybe he'll get them back as well. Butcher could pull a Sun-Hee and kill his own cancer with his laser eyes to end the final chapter of his life, and wouldn't that be a poetic ending? His cancer tendrils will then represent the devil on his shoulders, while his laser eyes will represent the angel. If Butcher kills the cancer with those beams, it will be more than a symbolic depiction of good over evil. But this is a massive if. The whole reason Butcher became healthy enough to appear in Season 5 is his acceptance of the cancer. And if things do play out the way they did in the comics, then he's going to try to kill himself in another way. Let's not forget that he's also in possession of the Supe-killing virus, and when he says he wants to kill all Supes, he's aware that that includes himself. Either way, the ending of Season 5 will see Billy Butcher pay for his numerous crimes with the ultimate punishment. The only question is whether that punishment will see him redeem himself or condemn himself to the same hell where Homelander's headed. But as for our breakdown of all of Butcher's powers, that's all we've got for you guys. Let us know your thoughts about them in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content from The Boys. We'll see you real soon with yet another video, so until then, stay safe, and let Butcher and his murder cancer be a warning to you. Don't do drugs of any kind, even if they give you superpowers.